Afternoon, students and colleagues. It's a privilege to be here with you this afternoon, and it's such a privilege to address this topic. I think mindfulness is so important, and I'm looking forward to the hour that we are going to spend together and discuss this topic more in depth. And I think right from the get-go, I would just like to indicate that mindfulness is an extremely personal thing, and with everything that we do discuss this afternoon, I would like you to really think about your own life. Think about your own context and what your needs are with regards to this, and how you can apply mindfulness in your life in order to optimize your well-being in this regard. So we'll get a bit more into what mindfulness is and so on. But I think the most important thing for me is that you really use the next hour just to concentrate on yourself, your emotions, and your functioning at this stage. Luckily, all of you are on a bit of a break, so hopefully academics is not at the forefront of your thoughts at this stage. So take this time, take this week and maybe the next few days that you still have to spend on yourself. I don't know if we'll ever get the chance again. Mindfulness, what we are going to discuss today, just in quick terms, is what is mindfulness, just a bit of theory behind it, benefits, also just going a bit into the theory and what does it entail and why do we need to talk about mindfulness? Why is this important? Then practicality, I think that's the important part for all of us. How do we incorporate mindfulness? So I said now that mindfulness is an extremely personal thing, and that's true, but there's definitely a few exercises and a few things that we can do in order to train ourselves to be more mindful. And then two very important topics will be discussed that's also linking to mindfulness, which is the journaling and doodling, which will most definitely also orientate your minds towards mindfulness. So I want us to quickly just look at the picture. I love this picture, and most probably all of you have seen it before. So the first word is mindful, which is actually two words, my apologies, versus mindful, which is one word. And I think when we look at this person and this dog walking, I think all of us wish that we could be more like the dog, just thinking about the sunshine, thinking about the trees, and just savoring that moment, which I think somewhere along life, our heads became so full with a lot of different things. It's not necessarily bad things. It's just a lot of things and a lot of different things. And we tend to go into an autopilot zone or an autopilot type of functioning. By that, I mean that we don't necessarily are fully present to where we find ourselves. And that's then when our head looks, or our thoughts look like this bubble with regards to the person's thought bubble. And I think most of us can relate to that. You've all been through an exam period where everything just feels overwhelming from time to time. Every little thing that happens extra is just, a lot. And you don't necessarily have the chance just to get a bit of peace and quiet in your mind. And I hope that what we are discussing today will orientate ourselves towards that, just to be a little bit more like the dog. So I want you to really keep this picture in your mind as we go on, and try to constantly ask yourself, how am I going to incorporate what is being discussed today to be more like the dog? Okay. Then I would just also like to start off the theory with a poem. I love this poem. And I think to a large extent, this summarizes what mindfulness is. So I'm going to read it, but I want you to also follow it and even take a picture if you want, just to read through it every now and again. But I would also Like the dog, I hope that as we go on, we will learn to be more like this guest house. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So I really love this metaphor. We being as a guest house and just allowing emotions to come in. We all experience emotions, we all experience thoughts. Not to constantly wish them away, but rather welcome them as they are and to be present in that moment in order for you to be okay to let them go and then to open up for a new space. Okay. I see that we have a bit of drawing here on the guest house, which I think is amazing. I'm not an artist, but thank you for that. Yes. Okay. So I hope this poem also means something for you. And I hope that as we go on, you will keep the image of the guest house as well as the dog in your mind. So what is mindfulness? Why is it important? Mindfulness is the basic human ability to be fully present, aware of where we are and what we're doing, and not overly reactive or overwhelmed by what's going on around us. So once again, just that ability to be fully in the here and now and not stuck on something that happened or a few things that happened, or to be thinking about the few hundred things that still needs to happen before the end of today, which I think all of us has that experience or has that feeling of wondering, where am I going to fit everything in? How am I still going to manage to get to everything that I need to? But I think mindfulness is just bringing us back to the center, recentering ourselves, being in the here and now. Whenever you bring awareness to what you're directly experiencing via your senses or your state of mind via thoughts and emotions, you're being mindful. Thus, to constantly or to in that moment, fully think about where you are, what you are experiencing, and then also what is the information coming in via your senses. So your sensory experiences, eyes or sight, smell, taste, feeling, and then also what we are hearing. Those are the 5 senses. The goal of this mindfulness is to wake up to the inner workings of our mental, emotional, and physical processes. So you might be thinking, oh my word, this is so philosophy. It's such a weird concept for me, and I don't know if I'm comfortable with this. Well, I want to be right from the start. I want to be very clear that mindfulness is not religious based. It's not spirituality based. It's totally a cognitive experience. It's cognitive, physical with the emotions that you are. So it does not add anything new. All that it asks is that we be present to the here and now, that we be present in what we are experiencing now instead of going to the future or running back from the past. And once again, this picture is quite significant to me. As you can see, there's the tree again. Mindfulness asks of us that we be totally, once again, fully aware of what's going on inside of our minds, instead of where meditation would want to open up our minds. So meditation would ask us or warrant of us to make space in our minds in order to introduce something new, which would then be spiritually based. whereas mindfulness does not do that. Okay, so if you have the picture of sitting on the floor and with your hands on your knees, legs crossed, that's not what mindfulness is at all. Okay, even though it's sort of based on the fact that we concentrate on our thoughts, that's about the only similarity that there is. So just to infographics, which I also thought was quite spot on when it talks about what is mindfulness. It's observing your life as it is happening. So being an observer, not a judger, not a critic, just an observer. Accepting your current situation without judgment or struggle. So once again, you'll see that the word current is in there, referring to where you are at now, allowing feelings to exist without letting them drive your actions. So thinking about the guest house, letting emotions come in, sweeping through us without being overly reactive to our emotions. Noticing our thoughts as they arise without the need to buy into them. So without the need to give our thoughts or our cognitions too much control. We just allow our cognitions and become aware of them. Taking action based on what you feel in your heart rather than old habits or short-term convenience. Okay. Mindfulness is simply being aware of what is happening right now without wishing it were different. Enjoying the pleasant without holding on when it changes, which it will. Being with the unpleasant without fearing it will always be this way, which it won't. And I thought that was actually also quite powerful. One of the tricks or one of the techniques also when we think about anxiety or going through a difficult emotional time is telling yourself that this will not last. And I think mindfulness is to a certain extent being very aware of that fact. Being aware that what you are feeling now is something, or being aware of what you are feeling, but knowing that it won't necessarily always be like this. So why are we talking about mindfulness? Why is this so important? And why am I getting so excited when we're talking about mindfulness? Not just because it wears off some of that autopilot, which I spoke about a bit earlier, and it counters that feeling of going into a total autopilot and not being in control of your own journey, but just being reactive to where we are going and to our journeys. Not is it countering that and allowing ourselves to savor every moment and to experience positive emotions. Also, together with that, the negative ones, but to be fully aware of what's going on around us and within us. Not is it only that, but there's also neurological evidence which shows that if we tend to be more mindful, and this, guys, is what's really getting me super excited, that not only is it positive and does it feel good for you, neurologically, there's changes happening within your brain, which is optimizing your brain to be as effective as possible. It reduces anxiety. In 2013, there was a study from Massachusetts General Hospital that individuals who underwent mindfulness-based stress reduction therapy reported a decrease in anxiety. It helps with focus. In 2011, Harvard did a study which they reported that after an 8-week mindful meditation program, participants were able to focus more. With all the distractions in today's society, this is significant to being present in life. And that is actually a nice way of saying it. Being present in life. It improves mental cognition. So it literally improves your neurology in order to optimize your cognitive ability. Through mindful meditation, individuals from a 2010 study published in Consciousness and Cognition Journal reported an increase in memory and decrease in fatigue and anxiety. Isn't this amazing? Just a bit more neurology. There's growing research showing that when you train your brain to be mindful, you're actually remodeling the physical structure of your brain. Mindfulness and stress. Research shows that practicing mindfulness, the gray matter in your brain's amygdala, a region known for its role in stress, can become smaller. Thus, your ability to handle stress better increases. Creativity. The prefrontal cortex is the area of your brain responsible for things like planning, problem solving, and controlling your emotions. So that is the thinking part. That is the part that we feel that we are in control. We can plan, we can do maths, we can study. The gray matter in this area can become thicker after practicing mindfulness, showing increased activity in these areas of thought. That relates to the mental cognition that I spoke about earlier. In general, the basis of this is, or what it means, is that we can actually improve our neurological functioning in order to optimize our cognitive ability. Memory, an area of the brain known as the hippocampus, helps your memory and learning. This area can also become thicker after practicing mindfulness. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I will do anything to improve my memory. So this is really quite powerful to me. Just looking at the picture here at the bottom again, I think later on in the presentation, you will see this picture again, but I think it's so important, being in the present. We know that sometimes our body is present, but we are not. We are thinking about something that have happened or things that we still need to do. Now, all that we are discussing this afternoon is trying to aim ourselves to just be where our bodies is at that moment. So to recenter our minds, to be fully in the here and now. Now I'm going to hand over to my esteemed colleague, Alicia, which will discuss some of the practicality to mindfulness. Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you, Karen. So let's talk through some mindfulness exercises that you can try. So you're welcome to try it as we go through it. Some of them might be just telling you about it so that you can go out and try it, and others you can try with me in this session today. All right, so to get started on practicing mindfulness, it can be helpful to find a word or phrase that helps you connect with the present moment. For just a few examples, something like clarity, be here and now, curiosity. Maybe you can picture an ocean or a river in your mind. What about getting in the zone, or watching and observing? Observe, describe, participate, in the flow, or accepting the moment. You can really choose any word or phrase that brings you back to the here and now, just to bring yourself back to being mindful. Thanks, Karen. So mindfulness is about inviting and practicing kindness towards yourself. If a thought distracts you, or if you find yourself having critical thoughts during mindfulness practice, it's perfectly normal at first. Just notice them, smile inwardly, and realize by noticing these thoughts, you are already busy practicing mindfulness. Then think of the words good enough to let go of these thoughts and proceed mindfully. When it comes to mindfulness, good enough is always good enough. It's okay to remind yourself to be mindful time and again. I think a better word is being remindful. Next slide, please. So let's talk through a mindfulness exercise. You're welcome to try it with me. So this mindfulness exercise is very helpful for when you feel stressed. Don't wait for the stress symptoms to reach a high level before using this technique. Start as soon as you notice signs of stress and practice often to relax your body and mind. I'm going to talk you through the squeeze out stress exercise. You're welcome to try it with me. So try to find a quiet spot where you can sit or lay down for a few minutes. So maybe you can do that just where you are at this point in time. To start, Press your heels into the floor or your bed for a few seconds. You can also press your hands together if you are laying down. Just take a moment to press your heels into the floor or your hands together. Let's take 3 nice deep breaths in and exhale slowly. So in and out. And in and out. One last time, and in and out. Continue to breathe deeply. As you inhale, I would like you to imagine, starting from the bottom of your body, your feet, that you are squeezing all the tension into an imaginary ball with your feet. Tense both feet as tight as you can, just enough to feel the tightness and tension. Hold this position, also holding your breath for 5 seconds while you hold this ball. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then release the ball of tension in your feet as you exhale slowly. Notice how nice it feels to let go of the tightness in the feet. Now inhale and imagine your breath traveling all the way down to your feet. As you exhale, feel this part of your body relax even further. I would like you to smile inwardly at your feet, a part of your body that works hard, carrying you around all day. Next, place your attention on your ankles, shins and calves. Contract those muscles and repeat the same squeezing out of tension in this part of your body. I'd like you to hold the tension for a few seconds. Just hold it and release as you exhale until no tension remains. Smile inwardly at this body part in gratitude. Little by little, we are going to move upwards in the body. You can move up to your knees and thighs. Just focus on that area of your body. Contract those muscles in your thighs as tight as you can and repeat the same squeezing out of the tension in this part of your body into that ball. Hold the tension for a few seconds longer and release as you exhale until no tension remains. Now for your hips, stomach and back muscles. Contract these muscles as tight as you can. Really just focus on that tightness in your body in that area. Squeezing out the tension into a ball. Hold it and release as you exhale. Smile inwardly at your back and your stomach. Close your hands to make fists while also tightening your arms. So contract these muscles in your arms, squeeze out the tension. Hold it for a little bit. Just focus on the tight feeling in your fists and your arms. And release as you exhale until no tension remains. Now I'd like you to tighten the muscles in your shoulders and neck area. Bring your shoulders all the way up to your ears. Squeeze that tension. Squeeze those muscles. Just focus on the tension. Hold the tension for a few seconds more. And release as you exhale until no tension remains. Smile inwardly at your neck and your shoulders in gratitude. Lastly, contract all the muscles in your face and scalp. Nobody's watching, you can really pull a face. And really just squeeze out that last bit of tension. Hold it. And release the tension as you exhale. And watch the ball of tension slowly drifting away from you into the distance. I'm sure you're already feeling a bit more relaxed. So don't forget to send gratitude to yourself for taking care of your body and managing your stress. Thank you. We can move to the next slide. This next exercise is helpful if you tend to be sensitive to sounds, or if you find intrusive sounds annoying or a bit irritating, which is pretty normal in this increasingly noisy world we live in. While we cannot always change the noises, we can try to balance it out. So this is how. Listen intently to the sounds around you. Just take a moment. You're not trying to resist them or judge these sounds as good or bad. Whatever they are, just notice as many of them as you can. Can you hear a few sounds? Just take a moment. Sometimes we feel worn out and stressed when we attempt to resist our experiences. Whenever you feel irritated by sounds, try this non-judging, neutral method of noticing as many sounds as you can without fighting them. Next slide, please. Now we're taking this exercise a step further. We want to turn down the volume with nature. So maybe you can go out while it is still recess to try this activity in the week to come. So what you need to do is to find a quiet and natural spot, for example, a park near you, maybe the backyard, or if you are in Potch, maybe you can visit the botanical gardens on campus. And when you're there, I would like you to widen your gaze and just let all of the natural world seep in. You can take in that beautiful natural picture. Then gently let your eyes wander to whatever natural feature attracts you, maybe a flower or a bird, a tree, or the fluffy white clouds above. Focus on this natural feature you feel drawn to. Don't analyze it, just experience it. Lose yourself in this moment. If any worries pop up, imagine casting them away outward into the nature. Enjoy sitting in the peace and wonder of nature. Listen to all the natural sounds and notice the tiny details around you. And you can then conclude that exercise with a centering statement, a blessing, or a gratitude. For example, I'm calm, I'm at peace, I'm grateful. You can also play nature sounds on your cell phone or look through your window if you aren't able to go out into nature and try the same type of activity. All right, so this exercise is one of my favorites, and I often do it in counseling as well. And it really just helps you to take your mind off all the worries. So you can really apply it over and over again. And it's really easy to do in the moment. So use this exercise to quickly ground yourself in the present when you only have a moment. The goal is to notice something that you are currently experiencing through each of your senses. What are 5 things that you can see? As you sit there in your room, maybe look around you and see if you can notice 5 things that you haven't noticed before. Maybe a pattern on a wall, light reflecting from a surface, or maybe there's a knick-knack in the corner of the room. Just take a moment and see what you can find. Right, what are 4 things you can feel? Maybe you can feel the pressure of your feet on the floor, your shirt resting on your shoulders, or the temperature on your skin. Maybe you can even try to pick up an object that's close to you and just notice its texture. What are 3 things that you can hear? Take a moment and really listen. Notice all the background sounds you had been filtering out, such as air conditioner, maybe your laptop, birds chirping, or cars in a distant street? Right. What are 2 things that you can smell? Maybe you can smell coffee or freshly cut grass. It doesn't always have to be a nice smell either. Maybe there's an overflowing trash can somewhere close to you. So you can also try, just smell into the air. What can you smell? And then lastly, what is one thing you can taste? Pop a piece of gum in your mouth, sip a drink, eat a snack if you have one, or simply just notice how your mouth tastes. Taste the air to see how it feels on your tongue. I'm sure it will be a bit cold today. All right. Thank you. So this is something you can really do easily and quickly wherever you are, even while washing the dishes, listening to music, or going for a walk. Maybe when you are busy in class and you're struggling to focus. Right, for the next exercise, this is not necessarily one we're going to do in session, but it's helpful to know about. So eating can be such an automatic activity where we often drift off into thoughts or even eat while we are doing something else, especially when one lives alone. I think that's easy. That's something that happens easily. You can start being more mindful when eating. So this is how. Breathe before eating. We often move from one task right to the other without pausing or taking a breath. By pausing, we slow down and allow for a more calm transition to our meals. Bring your attention inward by closing your eyes and begin to breathe slowly in and out of your belly for 8 to 10 deep breaths before you start your meal. Next, you can listen to your body. After breathing, bring your awareness to the physical sensations in your belly. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being that you don't feel any physical sensation of hunger and 10 feeling very hungry. I'm sorry. John, can you maybe mute our student? Thank you. All right. Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being that you don't feel any physical sensation of hunger and 10 feeling very hungry, ask yourself, how hungry am I? Try not to think about when you last ate or what time it is, and really just listen to your body, not your thoughts. The next one is to try and eat according to your hunger. So now that you are more in tune with how hungry you are, you can be more mindful about what you choose to eat, when you eat, and how much you eat. This simple practice can help you tune into your real needs. Practice peaceful eating. At your next meal, slow down and continue to breathe deeply as you eat. It's not easy to digest or savor your food if you aren't relaxed. And then lastly, if you don't love it, don't eat it. Take your first 3 bites mindfully, experience the taste, flavors, textures, and how much enjoyment you are receiving from a certain food. Make a mindful choice about what to eat based on what you really enjoy and what your body needs. We can sometimes really get stuck thinking about the future, usually causing us a bit of anxiety or apprehension, or we can get stuck in thoughts about the past, possibly leading to feelings of regret or sadness or wishing we were still in that special moment. It is healthy to train your mind to be in the moment. Use these 3 words to bring you back into the here and now. Observe, describe, and participate. So observe your body sensations. Pay attention, control your attention, and practice wordless watching. Really just observe both inside and outside of yourself. Then you can describe what you are observing. Put words to the experience. Label what you observe through your senses and leave interpretations and opinions behind. And lastly, participate in the moment. Throw yourself completely into the activities of the current moment. Become whatever you are doing. Go with the flow. While you observe, describe, and participate in the moment, also try to do it in a non-judgmental manner. This means not evaluating what you see as good or bad, but accepting it as it is. And do not judge your judging. Do this one mindfully. This means doing one thing at a time, letting go of distractions and concentrating your mind on this one thing in front of you. Do this effectively. Be mindful of your goals in the situation. Focus on what works, play by the rules, and let go of sitting on your hands. Really just participate. So if there is only 3 words to remember after this session, remember observe, describe, and participate. I want to challenge you to practice mindfulness in everyday moments. While you drink your morning coffee, engage your senses. Really look at the coffee and the cup, feel the heat of the cup against your skin, and smell the coffee before you savor the sip you take. Do the same when you shower. Just be present. Feel the pressure of the temperature of the water on your skin, smell the soap, and listen to the shh sound of the water. Look around you and drink in your environment when you stop at a red light. Instead of tapping your fingers on the steering wheel in your usual hurry, see if you notice anything new around you that you didn't notice before. Also do this for a few seconds when you take your first step outside in the morning. It might just change the direction of your whole day. It is almost intuitive to believe that it's better to do more at once, but it's not true. By dividing your attention up for multiple tasks, you are not giving any of them the attention they really deserve. In fact, studies have found that multitasking increases the possibility of mistakes, and it takes longer than doing the tasks separately. Take one task at a time and put your focus on the task at hand. When you are done, take a short break and then tackle the next task. It is a more relaxed and mindful way to get things done, and it is likely to improve your performance as well. In being mindful, you don't want to avoid your feelings. Part of it is being in the present moment, just the way that it is. Sometimes it might include feelings of joy, but you don't want to try to force happy thoughts or resist any particular emotional response. Sometimes you just need to accept unpleasant emotions as part of the moment. Accept disappointment, sadness, anger, jealousy, etc., as what they are and allow yourself to feel them. You, of course, want to be mindful of how you react to the feelings, but it is healthy to acknowledge them for what they are. The last mindfulness activity is called thought clouds. Have you ever spent time watching the clouds go by? If you haven't, watching clouds pass can be a relaxing thing to do. You can sit down or lie on the grass and look up at the sky as the clouds slowly drift by. Clouds often have recognizable shapes that look like animals or things that we know, and it can be fun to play games naming the clouds. You might even want to try it sometime. But this activity is very similar to that. So, except we are watching our thoughts go by instead of clouds. This activity is meant to give us a different perspective on our thoughts. It allows us to see our thoughts as something that we have the choice to keep and name, or the choice to let them just keep drifting by. So humans have an average of 6,200 thoughts per day. That's quite a lot. So having a thought doesn't necessarily make it true. Therefore, you can choose to pay attention to that thought or just acknowledge the thought and letting it drift away just like a cloud. Take some time here to let thoughts come into your mind. Is there anything that you're maybe excited about, worried about, happy about, unsure about? Let a thought float around in your head like a cloud, just letting it be there. Now you can decide what to do with that thought. Is it something that is important to you, or do you want to let it go? A cloud might look like a scary animal to us at first, but if we tilt our heads a little, it can easily turn into something quite harmless, like a bunny. So even if we can't see the bunny, the cloud will eventually pass. Thank you. So with that, I would like to hand over to my colleague, Ms. Naledi Modise. Thanks, Naledi.
Thank you, Kari. Thank you, Alicia, for taking us through the mindful exercises. I will be discussing journal and doodling as part of mindfulness practices. When you were a teenager, you might have kept a diary hidden under your mattress or in a secret place where no one could have access to it. It was a place to confess your struggles and fears without judgment or punishment. It mostly likely felt good to get all the thoughts and feelings out of your head and down on paper. The world seemed clearer. You may have stopped using a diary once you reached adulthood, but the concept and its benefits still apply. Journaling refers to writing down your thoughts and feelings to understand them more clearly. If you struggle with stress, depression, or anxiety, keeping a journal can be a great idea. It can help you gain control of your emotions and improve your mental health. One of the ways to deal with an overwhelming emotion is to find a healthy way to express yourself. This makes a journal a helpful tool in managing your mental health. Reasons for keeping a journal is that it helps you to remember and record your thoughts, feelings, actions, and practices. You are able to keep a record for you to revisit and analyze. Journaling helps you think things through. It actually allows you to see where you're at, where you have been, and where you're going. It then helps you to think about what you already know. Journaling also gives you the opportunity to reflect on your experiences. And lastly, something that we don't consider is that journaling can stimulate your critical thinking. Next slide. For many of us, the new normal includes a lot of virtual meetings. This form of connection is what is best for us currently. Even so, screen time can still be draining, and it doesn't give us the moment or touch that we crave for. I always assumed that doodling was a minor order bad habit, like putting your feet on the furniture or sipping milk out of the milk cartoon when no one is actually watching. Maybe many of you can agree with me that sometimes teachers would scold you for having doodles or sketches on papers or margins. Doodling is not a bad habit, it is a practice for many, and it may help mitigate the technology overload you might be feeling during the pandemic. To doodle, it has conventionally meant to scribble absent-mindedly. In a more formal term, doodling refers to the conscious or unfocused drawing made while otherwise preoccupied. Many people resort to doodling as an escape, as a place of escape. It is something we often do on autopilot, either when we're experiencing boredom, whilst waiting. We also use it as a distraction during long-winded lectures or a way to pass time in a meeting. Research has also indicated that doodling is helpful in memory retention. People actually concentrate when they doodle, as it prevents their minds from wandering, a common occurrence when bored while allowing the person to listen. Doodlers are sufficiently engaged with the moment and are able to pay attention to information presented. In other words, doodlers are actually not spacing out, but are somewhat in the moment. Doodling is regarded as a whole brain activity. It is spontaneous, at times unconscious, self-soothing, satisfying, exploratory, as well as memory enhancing and mindful. When you doodle, there's a complex interaction going on between the eye, the brain, and the central nervous system, and the hand. In other words, doodling and handwriting reflects brain activity. So what the writer is unconsciously doing is expressing the whole unique psychological profile in symbols on paper. Next slide. Meditative practices are called practices for a reason, just like yoga and other forms of meditation. It can take a while for you to learn how to settle and quiet down. We all live such busy lives that stopping all those thoughts rushing through our brains does not come easy. Writing in your journal is a good habit, but like any other habit, it takes time and self-discipline to make it stick. If doodling does support your memory, or at least keeps you focused during an uninteresting task, then we encourage you to indulge. Next slide. The following are ways that can help you when you want to start keeping a journal. Decide on a format. You have several options when it comes to the format of your journal. You can keep a paper journal. Many people find that the physical act of putting paper to pen encourages reflection. It's slow and measured, and it can be a valuable way to start and end your day. Another option is to keep an electronic journal. This could be as simple as using a document on your computer or making entries in apps. You could also consider writing a blog to record your experiences. However, keep in mind that once published, anyone has access to your thoughts, feelings, and experiences. Also, avoid saying anything negative or damaging about anyone in your life, or set up your blog so that only you can access it. If you want to journal on paper, buy a notebook or journal that appeals to you. You are more likely to use an attractive, well-made journal than a notebook that you picked up as an afterthought. Next slide. We then get into the practicality of how to journal and doodle. Start by opening your journal, type or write in a few words, just your thought, and you'll get into the flow. You don't have to keep your first paragraph. It's just for a warm-up. Add photos to your journal. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Not everything can be described with words, and we are lucky that we live in the age of digital photography, where you can take millions of pictures at no cost. Try different styles. In your journal entries, talk to yourself, your journal, or some imaginary or real person. Write as you would write a letter or a newspaper column. Try different styles to find your true voice. Review your journal regularly, for example, once a week to get inspiration. Keep notes about your feelings. You can even write them down in a new journal entry. If you can't identify any positive thing that happened, try to at least count your blessings by thinking about what you're grateful for, such as your health, family, or friends and skills. Think about your long-term goals as you complete your journal entry. Think about what progress you made since you last wrote on your journal and what can you do next to make progress on your important goals. To start doodling, use a piece of paper, A4 or smaller, to avoid getting overwhelmed. Don't worry about your drawing skills, they don't matter. If you want to improve your doodling skills for your artistic side, you can then check videos on YouTube or the internet for some assistance. The act of doodling is where the magic happens in terms of mindfulness, not the finished drawing. Relaxing or creative music can also help the process. Pick a starting point. You can draw a single dot in the center or work from one corner of page and fan out. Start drawing using very simple lines, swirls, dots, spirals, and other shapes to begin with. Draw freehand and incorporate any perceived mistakes into the design. Repetitive patterns work best, such as mandala drawing, centigal, and abstract doodling. The more detailed and the finer the lines, the deeper the concentration level. If you try and you end up giving up after a little while, it's okay. Leave it and try it again another day. Next slide. Here are some tips or ideas for making mindful doodling and writing a journal work best for you. Put some time aside every week for mental health to practice this mindful exercise. Doodle anytime you feel particularly anxious, stressed, or overwhelmed. Before an event or interaction that is making you nervous. If you're feeling creatively stuck or need some help solving a problem, then you can doodle. When you need to relax or unwind, instead of reaching for a glass of wine or TV, try doodling instead. Get into the habit of doodling by taking a doodling challenge. If you keep practicing, you will find that each doodling session will get to be longer and longer, and you will gain more benefit from it. Next slide. When you wish to journal, in order to make the most of your experience, aim to write at the same time, ideally when you won't be interrupted. Some people enjoy journaling first thing in the morning or right before bed. You could always write in your journal during lunch or in the afternoon break. Pace yourself. Remember, your daily journal entry doesn't have to be a novel. Go slowly at first, write for 5 or 10 minutes, and then stop when you've had enough. Over time, you might find that you might want to write longer. Also, don't amend what you write down. Just let the words flow. Effective journaling combines a clear narrative about recent events with critical thinking about what you have learned, what behaviors, if any, you can actually change. To help you write your journal, think about the following questions. What has happened since you last journaled? What have you learned since your last entry? What mistakes have you made? What difficult or painful events have occurred? If you could repeat a recent event, what would you do differently and why? Happy journaling and happy doodling. With the National Doodle Day coming up on the 20th of September, take some time out to explore this activity. It may look like procrastination, but it could actually help you to be more productive. We have also included the student counseling and development counseling services on the various campuses for you to access at your convenience. Your attendance is highly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Naledi, for that. It was really informative. And thank you, Alicia, as well, for the exercises. From our side, I would also just like to thank each one of you that participated in this afternoon. But before we greet, I would just like us to maybe have the opportunity to answer a few questions. Andre, I don't know if maybe you can just indicate if there is any questions or if anyone would also want to unmute themselves and maybe ask a question or add a comment. Okay, so it doesn't seem as if there was any direct questions that was directed towards genre. So anyone, I think we can maybe still keep the Zoom chat open for about 5 minutes. So if you would want to unmute yourself, or you can even just raise a hand and indicate if there's anything that you would want to ask. So I would just also want to clarify the difference between mindfulness and meditation. Maybe if I can just quickly run through this picture, I think this is quite important when we distinguish between the difference between mindfulness and meditation. Mindfulness is not the same as meditation at all. So meditation refers directly to a spiritual and religious component, which I have to say, in all honesty, I'm not exactly sure what it entails, but mindfulness is centering in ourselves and being fully present in the moment towards our cognition, so the thoughts that we have, the emotions that we are experiencing, and the surrounding in which we find ourselves at that exact moment. Where meditation would refer to clearing out our mind, so trying to create a quiet space in our minds in order to focus on something specific, which would then refer to a religious or a spiritual component. So that is the big difference. Mindfulness, being fully present, meditation, being fully quiet in order to concentrate fully on something else. I hope that clears it out. So yeah, just be wary of the fact that it's not the same thing. Some resources does make a use of the word mindfulness meditation, but it's still not the meditative, religion, and spiritual practice that is referred to in that context. It refers to the mindfulness which we have discussed this afternoon. So I hope that clarifies that. Now, lady, can I maybe ask you to answer the question on journaling and doodling?
Yes, I was actually planning on writing on the chat box, or should I just...
Whichever is easier for you, now, lady. I think you can just stay unmuted and answer.
Okay. So I was just saying there's no rule against actually having a separate journal or a doodling journal. It all depends on your preference, whichever way you feel that you'll be more creative. And if it's actually convenient for you, you can have the two together. Or if you actually want to have the two separate, then you can do that so that you have more space to actually explore your doodling. It all depends on what you prefer at that time and, you know, your ability to actually, juggle up the two. And also as your journey to actually explore journaling separately or incorporating the two, or you can just explore doodling on its own. Thank you.
Yes, my apologies. So this refers to the mindful eating. I don't know if there's any specific questions that you would also want to ask.
Hello, I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, I'm David. But I don't have a question regarding mindful eating.
Okay.
Yes. I have a question on mindfulness. Sometimes maybe you're experiencing challenges or things that really like stresses you in life, personal things, and you're trying to be mindful of what's happening currently in your life, or maybe you are at an event where it's like a celebratory event, but you cannot really be happy or be mindful of what's happening around you because there's something bothering you in your mind. So how can you really be mindful in that state when you are like feeling irritated and sad because you cannot swipe that thought of any event that had occurred in your life that
Yeah.
disturbs you, and you're trying to be mindful of the current situation or the current environment that is sometimes maybe celebratory or peaceful or enjoyable?
Thank you, David, for the question. I think it's very important what you are asking. And I think what you are getting towards is making the distinguishment between well-being and the possibility of really experiencing difficulty or the opposite of well-being or mental health. So mindfulness would be a practice or an exercise, and hopefully then later on a way of life to optimize mental health and well-being. But sometimes things in life happens, or we go through periods, or we struggle from something more severe. So maybe at one stage we struggle from a mental disorder, or there's something going on in our lives that influences us to the extent of us not necessarily being able to just forget about it to a certain extent, or be fully present or at ease with a thought. I think what is then necessary is to not necessarily focus on mindfulness when it comes to that, but rather address that difficulty that we are experiencing. So to address the worry or the concern that you have. And by that, it would be important to maybe deal with what needs to be dealt with, or to seek out further assistance from a psychologist or a counselor, just in order to talk it through, so that that thought or that stress becomes easier to handle in your neurologically or cognitively, if that makes sense. Because if the emotions is too distressing, it's not necessarily going to be easy or going even to be extremely helpful to try to be mindful. Or we can definitely try, but it won't necessarily bring the effects or have the effects that we would want. So David, I think the important thing is to deal with that difficulty and deal with that challenge as it is, and then also try to practice mindfulness in general life with other aspects of your life as far as possible. Alicia, can I maybe
thank you
ask...
so much, Karen.
Okay, David, thank you for the question. Alicia, can I maybe ask you to answer the follow-up question on the peaceful eating? Okay, maybe while we wait for Alicia, I'm just going to answer on her behalf. I think when we think about mindful eating, it's just incorporating a daily task that we have to do instead of doing it in autopilot manner, to concentrate and savor what we are eating and that moment. So peaceful eating would refer to not being overly emotionally charged, so not experiencing high emotional energy or emotionality at that moment, but try to be at peace as possible with your emotions. And in that regard, try to construct your thoughts, your emotions, so thus your inner workings, as we do by mindfulness, in order to create a peaceful environment as possible, in order to totally focus on the moment where you are at while eating. So as Alicia explained when we spoke about mindful eating, it's something that we do in a very hurried manner. It's something that we have to do. Usually it's compared with or combined, with a different task that we have to do. So we do it while we are working, while we are watching series, or while we are talking to a friend or getting ready to go out to class or something along those lines, which as peaceful eating would refer to just totally slowing that pace down and being fully present in that moment while you are eating. So to taste and experience every taste, every different taste within the food that you are eating, instead of being too hurried, if that makes sense. Thank you for the question. So the next question, would practicing mindfulness have the same effect as someone like myself who has ADHD, anxiety, and depression? So yes, thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you for asking the question. Mindfulness is a very, very important skill. So some therapeutic approaches does work solely on mindfulness. However, it's more it's more available as part of therapeutic approaches. So the disorders that you are talking about, ADHD, anxiety, and depression, all have different types of approaches or different types of things that needs to be addressed in a therapeutic approach, or a mental health approach or therapeutic approach, whereas mindfulness would form part of that. So I would definitely want to challenge you in this regard to try to be as mindful as possible in your daily living, and I do believe that it will most definitely also decrease some of the symptoms that you are experiencing with regards to some of the challenges that you have. But remember, it takes time. Mindfulness is something that we need to constantly practice as to get to a point where mindfulness is a way of life. Yes, we need to do exercises and we need to make time in our day to be more mindful. But hopefully we get to a point where we live a more mindful life. So Alicia also mentioned the very important notion of being in the present, and that is then where mindfulness would aim to totally focus and savor the present moment. Whereas when we do tend to think too much about past experiences, it can create regret or sadness, which could be a part of the depression that we talk about sometimes. And if we worry too much about the future, so if our minds drifts too far ahead, thinking about what still needs to happen, worrying about the future, then it goes towards the anxiety side. ADHD is also, because of the not being able to concentrate solely on the task at hand, it's also a not being fully present, if that makes sense. So I believe that it will definitely be a good experience. Thank you for the question. The next question, I think this concept of mindfulness is in a way encouraging solitude, which is a trigger to frustration and depression. So I would just like to clarify this. I really do agree with the first part of the sentence. I think this concept of mindfulness is in a way encouraging solitude. Solitude not to isolate yourself, because that could be dangerous, and isolation could also worsen other negative feelings. Yes, isolation could definitely trigger frustration and depression, whereas mindfulness is to a certain extent the opposite of isolation, because what it is asking of us is to be fully aware of what and where we are in the moment. So to still engage, to do what you need to do, to be around friends, to really participate in your environment. Whereas isolation asks you, or solitude, the negative sense to solitude, asks you to take yourself out of your current environment. So I hope that to a certain extent clarifies the opposite of that. So mindfulness would ask you to be fully aware and totally engage your senses towards the environment where you are in, which frustration, depression, and the loneliness side to it would rather ask you to cut off some of your sensational senses experiences, and that would definitely worsen the negative emotions. I hope that clarifies a bit, because I think that's an important concept. Thank you, Dondre, for posting another comment. If I can, I'm just going to read it out loud. Journaling is a habit. You can do it daily or whenever you feel most comfortable to journal. You must remember in your journal, you don't have to only jot down your positive aspects in life, but also include the negative ones. Journal whenever you feel like you are in the mood or ready to explore the exercise. It's more beneficial to journal regularly, be it once a day, weekly, or whenever it is most suitable for you. Alicia also spoke about good enough mindfulness, and I think that is extremely important. When you do participate in mindfulness exercises, remember, please remember, not to focus on perfection, but just focus on being there and being present. I think that's the important thing. So perfection is the opposite of mindfulness. So just be totally in the moment and present in that regard. Okay, so our time is running out. I'm quickly going to, okay, good. It doesn't seem like there's any other questions. If you do have any questions, can I kindly ask you to just email either the Student Counselling and Development email address. Dondre also posted a lot of information for where you can find more of our services or be in contact with us. So yes, thank you so much for all of you that participated. Thank you very much to my colleagues for co-presenting. I think this was valuable and I enjoyed it a lot. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.